impacted by this language. Now, farmers of hemp will push back. It is impossible to grow the crop without some amounts of THC. So we as an industry still feel that this is quite detrimental to the industrial side of the industry. Now, one saving grace is these agriculture appropriations bills have not passed in several years. For over a decade now, Congress has relied on temporary spending bills or continuing resolutions, often called CRs, to continue funding without more controversial aspects to be added to the spending bill. So it has now left the subcommittee on a 9-7 vote, and if it does make it to the full House, there are plenty of time to change and advocate for amendments in that agriculture appropriations bill specific to hemp. And then if it made it all the way over to the Senate and their Senate committee and then the full Senate, there's a lot of steps in this process before this would ever become law. So we are monitoring and watching as this bill moves forward, but if past indications and failed attempts to ban our industry at the federal level are anything to lean on, we feel confident that this will not go anywhere, but still important to track. Again, I'm Kira Hinkle. This was my hemp report for Cannabis Coast to Coast News. We'll see you next week.
Our federal cannabis reform reporter is Andrew Barringer, and he has more on what is going on with the president's spending bill that now could be the vehicle that could eliminate the hot hemp and THC-infused beverage industry.
I'm Andrew Barringer with the Washington, D.C. report for Cannabis Coast to Coast News. For the second time in his presidency, Donald Trump is proposing to eliminate federal protections that prevent the Justice Department from interfering with state medical cannabis programs. This move comes as a surprise to industry stakeholders who supported Trump based on his campaign endorsements of cannabis rescheduling, banking reform, and even Florida's adult use cannabis ballot initiative last year. The budget request seeks to remove a congressional rider that has protected state medical cannabis laws since 2014, a protection that Congress has consistently maintained regardless of which president requested its removal. During his first term, Trump made similar requests annually and even issued statements suggesting he might ignore the protections, citing this constitutional duty to faithfully execute federal laws. Now, cannabis advocates are particularly frustrated given Trump's campaign rhetoric. There's a significant disconnect between what was promised on the campaign trail and what we're seeing in this budget, says one industry representative. The president had previously endorsed rescheduling cannabis and expanding banking access for cannabis businesses. The budget also maintains restrictions preventing Washington, D.C. from using local taxpayer funds to implement adult use cannabis sales. Representative Eleanor Holmes Norton continues her fight against this provision, while the White House recently called D.C.'s cannabis reforms a failed policy that opened the door to disorder. And adding to the complexity is Trump's nominee for DEA Administrator Terrence Cole, who has expressed concerns about cannabis's dangers, but calls the ongoing rescheduling review as first priority, if confirmed. Now, Cole refuses to commit to any specific outcome, saying he'll consult with the DEA personnel, but before making decisions, interestingly enough, targeting medical cannabis protections, and Trump's budget continues to protect state hemp programs, a contradiction that highlights the administration's selective approach to cannabis policy. Congress is expected to reject Trump's request to eliminate medical cannabis protections, maintaining the bipartisan support that these measures have enjoyed for over a decade. However, this proposal creates uncertainty for the state programs and patients who rely on medical cannabis access. The ultimate direction of federal cannabis policy will likely depend on congressional action and the ongoing rescheduling review process initiated under the Biden administration. But for now, cannabis advocates are left wondering whether the campaign promises will translate into actual reform. Well, that's the Washington, D.C. report. I'm Andrew Barringer, reporting for Cannabis Coast to Coast News.
The race to become the 25th adult use legal state in the United States continues and now has a surprising new contestant. It's North Carolina. This is another state with a vibrant THC-infused hemp market, but some of the most strict prohibition laws in the country. Their governor, Josh Stein, went on record with an executive order covering the North Carolina Advisory Council on Cannabis. There will be 30 members, including lawmakers, law enforcement leaders, agricultural stakeholders, health and medical experts, trial representatives, and industry advocates to explore possible regulatory models for adult use guidelines for both sides of this plant medicine. Now let's check in with Michigan to see what's going on in that state with Amy Carter.
I'm Amy Carter with Michigan Weedsters, bringing you this week's Michigan report for Cannabis Coast to Coast News. Michigan lawmakers are still eyeing bills to allow roadside saliva testing for THC, raising eyebrows amongst experts. Critics warn of a 25% error rate from past tests, and that THC presence doesn't prove impairment, leading to fears of unjust arrests. Over on the west side, a popular Niles restaurant is leaving for Indiana, paving the way for a new Happy Days dispensary. A Michigan resident and long-term green card holder found himself in federal custody for almost 2 months due to an older cannabis possession charge. This occurred despite his legal marriage to a U.S. citizen and raising 3 children in Ypsilanti. Interestingly, he and his wife previously supported Donald Trump, who prioritized immigration enforcement in his campaign and policies. Iosco County, Michigan, police found over 5,000 cannabis plants worth $5 million at an illegal grow operation in Iosco County. 4 Chinese nationals face charges linked to an internet